This is round 9 of Reykjavik Open, and I am right now sitting outside of the city hall of Reykjavik. This is beautiful Iceland, and today I play the final round of my chess tournament. Now it's kind of cold outside, which is why I'm wearing a jacket and a scarf and everything. I mean, I think it's like 2 degrees Celsius right now, but it's so beautiful here, and I really wanted to show you how the place looked before I traveled back home. So, I played today in the final game against John Egert Helsen, an Icelandic 1700 rated chess player. And I had the black pieces again. I repeated with the white pieces at some point in the tournament, which is why I have the black pieces now again. So everything I wanted to do today was not blunder like I did yesterday. Like everything that I kept going through my mind was, Anna, do not fall for any trick at move 7. Do not blunder a piece, do not blunder a pawn, do not blunder anything. So I was keeping it very safe this game. That was everything that I wanted. So my opponent went e4 and I went for the Sicilian, and he played the Alpin, which is c3. And actually I kind of wanted to play this line, which is going d5 because it's super safe, but I decided to play the main line, which is going knight f6, and all of this is just very standard stuff. So he took, and then I went e6. And now knight f3, and then I just went d6. And this is like, you don't have to go here, but the idea of going here is just that I basically want to exchange the center. Like, I don't want to allow my opponent to have a very big center, so going d6 is very common, just to exchange this pawn for this one. Now, for some reason when I did this move, my opponent didn't write down his move. And every time during this tournament that I've made a move and my opponent has looked surprised and not written down the move because they're in shock, I've literally blundered a piece. So I was terrified. And not only that, there were all these like stronger chess players that kept on passing by my board and staring into my eyes as if I was making a huge opening blunder, and I had no idea what was going on. But you know, this is totally fine, like this is theory. So he went bishop e2, which is just a very safe way of playing. And then after this, I went knight c6 because I just wanted to block all the checks, and this knight belongs here, and it's putting some extra pressure on e5. So he castled, and I went queen c7, and this is kind of weird. The reason I went here was because I wanted to immediately apply pressure to this e5 pawn. Like here I'm immediately threatening it. Now my mom thought this was a weird move, and I think I kind of agree. I should probably just develop all my pieces and castle and capture here instead of going for this move. This is kind of early to bring out your queen. You know what they say, do not move your queen early on. So he went rook e1, and now the threat is that if I capture here and then he captures back, well, I can show you. If I take, and take, I actually lose my queen due to bishop b5 check. And this is a discovery check. So I can't go for that. I cannot capture this pawn. So instead I just developed, and probably here actually it would have been a better option to take. But he went a3, which is kind of slow, and once again I should take. But I kind of wanted my opponent to take here, and there's a bird that's going, I don't know if you can hear it. I think the bird wants to play some chess. And there's also an airplane. But yeah, I was kind of waiting for my opponent to capture here, which was the reason I didn't do it. So I just went castles, but then he went bishop c4. And when he went here, I was really happy because I knew what my opponent wanted to do. And I could tell that my opponent really wanted to capture this knight on d5, which made me really happy because I really wanted his bishop here. Typically, this light-squared bishop is the scariest piece in the Alpin because it just like literally snipes down your king. So I just wanted to make sure that this piece was not here anymore. So I was actually pretty happy. I decided to capture the pawn. And here, if he would recapture, I would just go rook d8 and activate all my pieces. But instead, I knew when he went here that he was going to capture on d5. And this is actually not really the right idea for him. He went takes, and now this is an isolated pawn, so this looks like a really bad pawn, but actually this pawn can become pretty strong. The only thing I need to make sure of now is that I do not exchange all my pieces. When you have an isolated pawn, you want to keep as many pieces on the board as possible, because the less pieces I have on the board, the less pieces can basically defend my pawn. And also, like, isolated pawns allow like a lot of open diagonals, so actually like me having a lot of pieces is good because I can like bring them out and stuff. So he went here, or sorry, I went bishop e6 to defend this pawn, and actually here I can go d4, but I thought it was really scary to go for the pawn sacrifice. Takes and rook d8, but this is actually the best way of playing. I should actually push d4, but I was actually really scared of giving my opponent squares and of sacrificing a pawn. And it was a lot because of what happened yesterday, right? It was very psychological that I was just scared of giving material. So I was playing very safe. I went rook fd8, and I spent 20 minutes analyzing like what rook I should bring here, which is so stupid, but well, it's not stupid, but it's just like a little bit of a waste of time. So I spent 20 minutes thinking about what rook, because I was looking at all these crazy lines. I thought that after I went rook d8, that he was going to go knight b5, and then I thought after queen b6, he's probably going to go knight here, trying to block my pawn. I will go bishop c5, he will go bishop e3, I will go bishop g4, pinning, he will go b4, and then I will basically take everything here. And then I realized that in this position, I would rather have my rooks like this. So this is like, I went on like, I don't know why. I think I wanted to like finish calculating the whole game. Like I went crazy over here. I was calculating all these things, and I ultimately decided that it was better to have my rooks here, which was the reason for me in this position, not moving this rook, but instead of moving my other rook. I honestly feel like a crazy person right now. So I went here. But honestly, like my mom, she once told me a story that there was a Swedish grandmaster who played chess, correspondence chess, where you basically send in your moves, and he once spent 1 week trying to decide what rook to put on d8. So he went even crazier than I did during this game. So he went bishop f4, and he immediately said, hey Anna, all the 20 minutes you spent on moving your rooks don't matter because I'm just putting my bishop on f4. But I still was happy that I moved my rook here, and once again d4 is a strong move, but I kept on missing this idea. So instead I went queen b6, which is totally fine. And now actually after queen b6, I'm threatening this pawn. And I don't really know if I even want to take it because I would be opening up a lot of files for my opponent. But Nils Grandelius, the strongest Swedish chess player, once told me, Anna, if you're playing as lower rated players, just pretend like you're threatening stuff because they will probably think that you are just because you're stronger than them. So I went queen here, making my opponent think that the b2 pawn is hanging, but actually I wasn't even sure if I wanted to capture it because it would be really scary to allow my opponent to get the rook into the b file. So here he went b4, which is actually a mistake because it's now weakening the whole pawn structure. And now in this position, this is a key point. I should actually go a5, which is a great move because I'm threatening this pawn, but also if this pawn leaves this square, then this pawn over here is going to become very weak. So a5 was a key move here, and I actually missed it. And I was really sad because I went rook c8 thinking that it was going to be the same thing. I saw the idea of going a5, but I completely missed that my opponent had this move queen d3, which is now taking control of all the light squares. And now if I go a5, this is a really bad move due to knight a4, queen c7, and b5. So I actually really regretted it, and I got really mad at myself for not playing a5 in that position. And the engine agrees. The engine says that a5 was the best move. So queen d3, I was kind of upset that I didn't play it, but I thought, you know what, we gotta keep on pushing forward. And so here actually with this move, this is a great move. He's one, stopping me from getting to the light squares here, but two, he's also threatening knight g5, which is a very sneaky threat, threatening checkmate, but also just threatening to put pressure on my bishop, and the knight would be a really good place there. So here I went h6 because I didn't really know what to do, and I thought it was always gonna be a useful move. And he went knight a4. Which is actually not a great move because I saw what he wanted to do. I saw that he wanted to threaten my queen. And then after the rook came in, I have to move my queen. He wanted to exchange, and I was actually really happy when we exchanged here because this knight was really strong, and my bishop is actually not doing much. And because of my move h6, actually my opponent cannot really take control of the dark squares. So I thought that this was actually good. I exchanged and went b6, kicking away the rook. And now my opponent has to go back to c1 because actually he now made a mistake. He pushed the rook back, and I started getting lower on time here, but this was the start of me starting to get confident in the position. Before this, I hadn't really felt so confident in the position, but now I saw that my d-pawn has a dream. So here, when he went rook c3, I didn't say thank you, but in my brain I was like, yes, because I could go d4, I could push my pawn, and now I'm threatening the rook. And the rook has to go back to c1, because if the rook goes over here, then boom, I have a skewer. So the rook had to go back to c1, but then it would have been better for my opponent to go there immediately. So I went bishop f5, threatening the queen, and when the queen moved, I pushed this d-pawn, and now this d-pawn has come so far. And if my opponent is not careful, at some point, if he moves his pieces, I might be able to push d2. So I got really excited here. And he went bishop e3, and now I saw that this knight has no squares. And the reason he went bishop e3 is because he was scared of me going knight d4. This is the threat that I have right now. So he wanted to stop me from going there. But actually now, this pawn is kind of weak. And I found this idea of going bishop g4, threatening my opponent's knight, and the knight cannot go anywhere. Because if the knight moves somewhere, I can take this. And I actually saw this really pretty line of the knight moving up and me being able to capture over here. And then I saw that after like takes, I saw this like crazy move, bishop takes h6. And because now my knight is hanging, but I realized that I have this move rook c2. And after queen over here, I have f6. And the queen is like pretty, well, the queen can't go anywhere. And I thought this was really pretty. I had to show you guys, I thought this was cool. I found this during the game and I got really excited. So I realized that after bishop g4, the knight cannot move. So actually my opponent got really sad and he went back at the bishop. I think he just missed the move. So he retreated with the bishop, and now I was able to exchange, and you can now see that the pawn structure is going to become really bad. But instead he does this intermediate move e6 because I think he just did not want me. After g takes f3, I have this move queen f5, where my queen is really well placed and I'm pinning the bishop. The bishop cannot move because the pawn is hanging. I think he wanted to stop me from getting the queen to f5. So I captured, he captured, and here queen f7 is good, but I think queen d5 is fine as well. I just put my queen in the center. And oh, now the sun is out here. It's not often you see the sun in Iceland. And so he went rook e4. And here, I found this really cool idea of g5, where basically the idea is that if the bishop goes here, I have knight d4, and this is completely crushing. I'm threatening to take here, and I'm threatening to push and to go here. I mean, this knight move is crushing. So it cannot move, and if he goes bishop e3, then I have knight e5 with the same idea of threatening here. So he can't do any of it. So actually, he decided to sacrifice his bishop, and I only had a minute left here. And because I only had a minute left here, I kind of stressed out, and I saw that the reason he went here was because he wanted to throw all his pieces at me. And I got scared after takes of him having queen takes, and you know, the rook is coming in, my king is weak. And okay, here I have my only move is queen f5, but this is a really strong move and it wins the game. And I didn't see it during the game, I missed it, and I got really stressed out. So I ended up just moving up my king and not taking the bishop, which is objectively like the worst decision. I should have taken the bishop, but maybe practically it was fine because I was so low on time. I only had seconds. So time was ticking, and my opponent, I could tell that he was starting to get really stressed as well because his time was ticking too. And he retreated with the bishop. And now I simply went queen f5, threatening to capture this pawn. And he went for this move, rook c4. Once again, here I should take the pawn, but I got scared of this pawn kind of maybe falling because it's threatening my knight. But takes and b5 would have been the better option. But I wasn't really playing the best moves here because I was so low on time. So instead I went knight e7, and we exchanged some rooks. He went king g2. And now I just wanted to go, you know, after his king. Now in this position, I can go knight g6, which is like a crazy rook sacrifice, but I was not in the mental state to like go for this rook sacrifice. This actually, now after knight h4, it's going to be a checkmate in like 7 or something, but I was not in the mental state to go for a rook sacrifice, so I just tried to play solid. I went g4, just going after his pawns, and he pushed f4. Then I exchanged and brought my knight up, and now he went king g3. The king I saw was almost getting checkmated. I was looking at ideas such as queen e4, but instead I decided to push e5. He got really low on time here. I mean, this is a completely crushing position now because I'm just going to be taking here. There's nothing you can do about it. But he got really stressed out. His time was ticking. I saw his clock going down to like 10 seconds, and he captured the pawn. And then I went for queen f3 check, and now there's nothing he can do because after the king goes up, this is going to be a checkmate. So actually, after queen f3 check, my opponent resigned. And I won the final game of Reykjavik Open, which made me really happy. Honestly, the tournament didn't go super well. I ended up losing around 20 points of rating, which is obviously not so good. But every time that you win the final game of a tournament, that's sort of what you remember the final day. And actually, like now that I won this game, I feel like Reykjavik Open went great, which it didn't, but it feels that way. So I'm pretty happy. I ended up taking 4.5 points out of 9. The only game that I'm unhappy with was round number 8, so yesterday. The other games I think were pretty fine. did some mistakes here and there, but it was a really fun tournament. It was an amazing experience, and I'm really happy that I played. I'm really excited to come back to classical chess, and I want to play more tournaments. So I truly hope that you've enjoyed this series that I've been doing. This was the final episode of my Reykjavik Open series. If you did, please consider subscribing, as it helps out the channel a lot. And you know, it's been tough playing and streaming and doing all kinds of things, but it's been so worth it, and it's been so much fun. So thank you guys so much for following my journey here in Iceland, and I will see you all in my next video, which will be very soon.